It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Welcome back everyone to 2G Talks. Rachel here. 2G Talks is a segment I hope to create a narrative and conversation around Second Gen's experience in Providence, while also discussing other topics all related to Second Gen, centered only on the Lord. For today's 2G Talks, we have a very special segment, as I have a special guest who's going to talk with me today, who's going to discuss about valuing and realizing Second Gen. This is going to be a very special Tuesday segment, as I believe it's just going to be my 2G Talks for this week, which I hope is okay. Eddie is out for this week. He's super busy. I believe he's traveling and living his best life, hopefully. I'm pretty sure, I think. But yeah, so because of that, it's just going to be us for today, which I kind of like because I get you all to myself, which who knows when this will happen again. So yeah, that means today is just going to be my 2G Talk segment. I'm super excited to share with you guys. As I mentioned previously, I have a very special guest who's going to be speaking with us today. So let's go ahead and get into our 2G Talks for today. Happy Tuesday, everyone. How was your past week? Like I mentioned in my intro, I have a really exciting segment that I kind of want to get to really quickly today. So I'm just going to go through this very fast, but of course I have to update you guys. As you know, I love talking. But really, this intro that I'm doing, I wanted to praise the young Second Gen, which they're not really young. They're maybe a couple years younger than I am, maybe early 20s, late teens. But as you guys know, we record our segments earlier than the day that they're posted. So I'm recording on Sunday evening right now, which means that a couple hours ago, we just had our Second Gen small group meeting. So what's that? Well, in the American Providence Second Gen department, we're currently having re-educations every Sunday for Second Gen that are in their late teens and college years, because we really want to catch those lives before the next school year starts. And so because of that, myself and the other leaders thought it was really beneficial not just to have the Second Gen listening constantly, because that's all we do kind of growing up. We listen to the messages, pre-dawns, lessons, but we also wanted to give Second Gen an opportunity to share back their thoughts, questions, reflections, and realizations, which essentially are what the Second Gen small group meetings are. So essentially every other lesson we have one of these Second Gen small group meetings where we discuss possible reflections and realizations that we had. Usually after a education or a lesson, so we had a lesson last week, I'll always put a reflection question that Second Gens will add to their spiritual journals that they have. And so today we actually kind of just discussed that. And a lot of the Second Gen that joined us today had such moving realizations that I wanted to share. And I wanted to share two of them. I'm not going to name names in case they're listening. But the first one that I wanted to share was of a Second Gen who came to realize after listening to Pastor Sky's history lessons. Now, if you haven't been able to listen to Pastor Sky's history lessons, I don't know how you'll be able to find them. Maybe you can ask him personally. But they are really incredible. They go over the history of the world and how they tie into God's history. Actually, how they parallel to God's history over the years. It was really fascinating. It was pretty amazing to see. And so many of the Second Gen, myself included, had never heard of this history lesson before. And one of the Second Gen, after listening to it and going over our reflection question, which our reflection question for that week was, how do you see God as an active participant in your life, as a part of your history? And so the Second Gen today, he shared that he had never really thought of it before in that way. And that a lot of the times growing up, he always struggled with because in the messages, some of them says certain things God does, certain things you gain because of how much effort and work you put in. Like, for example, idol worshipers. They don't believe in God, they believe in idols, and yet because they work so hard and they take so much action, good things come to them because that's God's law. And so he said that he struggled for a long time growing up in Providence and just coming to gain that confidence in whether certain things that were happening in his life, was it God? Was it coincidence? Was it because of his hard work? And so because of that, he kind of floundered in his faith and being able to absolutely say, yes, this was God that did it for me. And so he wasn't sure. But after the history lesson and really thinking about it, he came to the conclusion that it's half and half. Half of it, yes, is the work that he's done and put in so much effort to. But the other half is that God really does everything good for us. And it's that combination of the fact that we have God's law, which is that we take action and we get good things because of that, but also because God loves us so much that upon those blessings of working hard, God will give us even more. So the second gen realized how much God is really a part of their life, actively working with them, even if this life or the second gen is taking action on his own. So that was really moving to see them have that realization. And the second one that I want to share really briefly was another second gen. He realized from the spiritual world. And the reflection question for the spiritual world lesson was regarding, because we talked about the different levels of hell and heaven. And so the question asked, from God's point of view, how do you think God feels looking at humanity? Which is a really kind of big question, if you think about it, and very layered. But the second gen gave something so moving. He essentially explained that he realized the heart of God and that he could see how God loves humans so much that he sent someone to the earth to save them so that they didn't have to go through such terrible places, and how also God made such beautiful places because of how much he loved human beings. And so he realized God is really love, and that he is so grateful to be in this history. So that was really incredible to see. It's really moving too, just in general. A lot of second gen, we have the same difficulties and conundrums in our lives of faith as we go through them, but we also somehow all seem to come to the same conclusion, granted in our own ways, but we do all come to that one realization regarding our faith, which again is amazing, and I guess not a coincidence, but it's amazing because although we come from different backgrounds and ethnicities, and even from different countries, it's because of that same core of love and the foundation of the word that we're able to come to that one center, that core. So yeah, I'm just in a really good mood. It was a great time. I loved listening to the second gen. I thought I was so moved by them. I could feel God's love for them and see, oh, God thinks they're so cute. So yeah, I was in a great mood. And I'm in an even greater mood today because I have a very special guest who's going to be speaking today. She's cringing currently as I'm saying that. But I have the writer of my 316 journal, the beautiful, the hilarious, the person you've all been waiting for. Maybe, I don't know. My best friend, Alva. Hi, Alva.
Hello.
So I guess you can feel free to introduce a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, I'm Alva, and I don't know, maybe a few of you remember, I was in the Provipuff Girls. We only did 3 episodes. It was the one with the cute thumbnail of the little Powerpuff Girls. Mm-hmm. So if anybody watched that, then you might remember me, or maybe not. But yeah, so yes, I'm Alva, and I made the 316 journal with lots of care and love and dedication of sitting through the freezing rain in 316. But a little introduction about myself. I had come in 2020, so I'd actually met the Bible study right kind of before COVID. In August, I had met the Bible study, and then right when COVID hit was spring break, and then I realized a little bit shortly, a few months after that, And so I was taught by Rachel's mom, Mel, and so that's why Rachel is also my best friend. Because during COVID, I was practically living at her house. Mel was teaching me the Bible studies, and then I was also hanging out with Rachel, like, literally for days. I would be here for, like, a week, and I'd go home for a week, and then I would go to Rachel's house for a week, like, learn, like, 1 or 2 Bible studies, you know, and so it was really, really great. I think I had, honestly, probably that opportunity will never happen for anybody else ever again. I realize I'm probably the most unique. Not to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so unique. But, like, I had such a special, like, what is it called?
Coming to Providence?
Yeah, like coming to Providence, like being taught in such a unique way, because it was like I was being taught inside a home, like this was my own family. And Mel even says like, oh, Alva's my other daughter, my spiritual daughter, so I'm kind of like a second gen. I'm just kidding.
That's what Pastor Sky says.
I'm just joking though, but yeah, that's how I had come to Providence. And currently, right now, my missions are the main 2 is I'm a Milky Way Sunday school teacher, so I'll teach about once or twice a month on Sundays. And then I'm also a creative advisor in the Houston Eagle Arts Department.
Yes, so Alva has a lot of really incredible and important missions here at Houston Eagle Church. Yeah, it's funny. We could go more in depth about how she came to Providence, because I think it was really amazing. But anyways, that will possibly be for a separate segment. This is 2G Talks, centered on second gen. So I have a couple of questions here that I thought maybe Alva could answer regarding the fact that she is a Sunday school teacher, which I think is not everyone gets that mission. I definitely would not want that mission. Not because I don't love second gen. I do. I'm a second gen leader. Kids, they're a lot of work. So yeah, I wanted to hear her kind of side, and perhaps it would give you guys more insight too, in case you may have a younger second gen in your church or just second gen in general, and how to interact with them. So yeah, as a Sunday school teacher, how do you think you've kind of adapted your lessons to fit second gen? Do you have any funny stories? How do you see managing second gen? Are there any realizations? How is it?
Okay, so second gen, first of all, I love them. They are so funny, and I don't know, I love every single one of them. They're so cute. I love saying hello to them and seeing them run around. So it's always fun. I do really like kids, and I think kids like me. I assume how they act around me. I assume that they like me, because I act like a little kid myself. But with how I've adapted my lessons to fit second gen, usually when you teach Sunday school, you get like a PowerPoint, and sometimes I always go off the PowerPoint, but I'll go off a little bit sometimes if I feel something needs a little bit more like according to their hearts, right? Yeah. But usually I find it really refreshing to teach second gen because they know about Sensitive. And so I can really openly talk about the realities of the Bible, talking about Sensitive, talking about Jesus, like talking about, oh yeah, right, Jesus resurrected and, the Spirit and blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's because you also teach, she's also a lecturer, so she teaches newcomers as well, which is why she says it's refreshing. Because, you can just very clearly, you don't have to hide anything.
Yeah, because obviously when you teach newcomers, like people outside of Providence, you have to, obviously be very aware of how you speak because, But with second gen, it is really refreshing because you can just say whatever. And second gen are very smart. They're very, very, very smart. I've noticed this. They're very in tune to the word, and they can pick up on things really quickly. If I ask a question, immediately they'll know the answer, right? When obviously people of the world will have no idea what we're talking about. And even if it's something really hard, like a really hard question, they will also immediately answer it. They oftentimes know Sensitive's heart too. And they understand the circumstances that he's in currently, and they realize that the people of the world are
the reason for it, I suppose.
Yeah, like one time, one of the kids, because one of the lessons was about where Sensitive is right now, and how God had helped him to see that, this isn't hell, right? This isn't a prison hell, but this is a heaven, right? And I had to teach about that. It's obviously a very heavy subject, but one of the second gen, he was testifying to me. He was like, oh, it's so adorable. He has such an earnest heart. He's like, oh, these people, they don't understand. He didn't do any of that. And he loves Jesus and all of this. And he would never do. It was just so cute. They really do understand Sensitive's heart. But they also are very funny, because they can be quite blunt, because they don't quite understand some of the nuances of the word, because even with adults, we're like, wait, Sensitive, do you mean this or this?
Right.
And so they obviously are the same. And so I'll be like, oh, this is, like this. And then they'll be like, wait, no, it's like this. I'm like, okay, well, it's also like this. And this is what the message said. But it said this. And I'm like, yes, you are correct.
That is where the second gen already, I see the stemming of I already know everything. But second gen tend to have where we grew up listening to the messages in the word. So yes, we do know the heart, but then we also can be really stubborn and get very set in our own thinking, and it can be sometimes hard to change that and be open to accepting perhaps different views. Yeah, and not only that, but they're also just kids. So kids kind of say the craziest things sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
The funniest things are probably, how I teach is I write on a little whiteboard, and so it goes through the flow, and oftentimes the kids will be like, that A is ugly, right? And like make fun of my handwriting. And so I try to write really neat and pretty. And then, or I draw a lot of pictures. And so I'm like, is that supposed to be the Holy Spirit? It looks ugly. You should draw it like this. I was trying to like take the marker. I'm like, hold on, you can draw her later. Like, we gotta keep going.
So, yeah, that is one of the reasons why I am not a part of the Sunday school teachers, because I like working with high schoolers, as y'all know, and they listen, I think, a lot better than little kids do. Yeah. Little kids are still adapting. They're still growing their frontal lobe, and it's great that we get to teach them within Providence to develop not only their physical brains, but also their spiritual brains. So moving on to that, as they're developing their physical brains, do you see that, I guess, movement or growth in their spiritual brains? Do they have any realizations, or have you realized anything from working together with Second Gen?
I have noticed that they have like adult realizations for themselves about mostly about Sensinim. I've realized they're really connected to Sensinim a lot. But my own realizations that I get from like teaching the Second Gen, I realize that they are very smart and they have sort of a deeper connection with God, not in like, I'm better than you, I'm better than all the other members. No, not like that. But it's because of, right, the first generation of people, right, obeying God and becoming God's brides and then obeying his will. God is able to, like, sculpt, right, these future brides and, like, develop his history how he wants to. Like, he made, like, so many, I've noticed all the Second Gen have something about them that's, like, really, like, oh, you're really good at this, or you have this core that's like this. I've noticed every single one of them has something really, like, special, and that can really make Providence history, like, flourish and shine. And it's like a little piece of God that he, like, put in there, like a little extra, like, sparkle that that I can see that it could really develop, because a lot of the the older Second Gen that I know, they do a lot of great things for the church, right? They're very strong, and they really kind of not lead the church, but they're in a lot of leadership positions. And so I can see that in a lot of the younger kids, where they have these, like, leadership, like, qualities already, and they're really bold. And if that's really nourished, then they'll be amazing. They're already amazing now, I see these little kids, I'm like, oh, I love you. So how much more God is like, oh, I love my little babies. So that's why I don't get mad at them. I'm very easygoing. I don't really, if they do a little something off, I'm like, okay, let's move on. Because how much more is, God, like, loves them and cherishes them, and he's made history up to this point to make the Second Gen, like, obviously not the whole world isn't just for Second Gen, right? But, of course. But that's a part of his history that he had wanted to make for so long, because it's gonna, like, and so they're very special in that way. And but yeah, and I also realized, like, they have right, that blood connection, like, to God, right, through their families. And it made me think that if anybody knows Percy Jackson, you guys are like little mini demigods.
That's that is my favorite book for you guys listening. My dad used to read it to me growing up, and so it became my favorite thing. It was my first book crush, Percy Jackson. But yeah, many demigods is what they were when God said, children with humans. But I like what you said, where the portion where technically Second Gen are a part of that spiritual bloodline. And I think, yes, Second Gen are so amazing in that way, where we come to be born in that, according to God's purpose of creation. But for myself, it's even more impressive, like, for members, because it was people who weren't Second Gen. For example, like, I look at my mother, or I look at other people in the church, or even Alva and her family, because she actually evangelized her dad, which is
yeah, I did.
which is a crazy thing, because most people, it's really hard to evangelize your family. But for myself as a second gen, when I look at members, I'm always so moved, because you lived so long a certain way, or with a certain habit, a certain lifestyle, or morals, and then you come to Providence and you hear the word, and your life, you have to change your life. Of course, you want to change your life initially, because the word is so amazing, but then when you're in it, you have to actually go and change your habits. And that's something that's super difficult to keep. And I look at my mother, for example, and I see the condition that she set for me as a second gen to be able to receive the blessings, and to be able to have those really great qualities and traits that Alva was talking about, and like other second gen. But it's all because of my parents and my mom specifically. And I think of myself, even as a second gen, I was like, man, if I was living by myself, I don't think I'd be able to keep these conditions, because it's so hard to just make that your daily life and make that your constitution if it wasn't already your habit. And so, yes, second gen are amazing. And I think myself, I probably wouldn't have been able to come to Providence unless I was born into the faith. And so I'm grateful for the Holy Trinity for that. And so second gen are great most of the time because of the condition that was set by all of you and by members who are also really great, because everyone that comes to Providence is a really great person.
That reminds me of what I said towards the beginning of my intro, where I had learned Bible study like in Rachel's house. And so Rachel had said just now, like, oh, if she wasn't like a second gen, she wouldn't be like, it would be hard to live like that. And that made me think, oh, maybe I had come to Providence because I was like living in her house. I was living like a second gen, going to pre-dawn like with them in their house. We would get dressed, get changed. I would come over to her house for Sunday service, and I was in that kind of frame of mind. And it's definitely easier when you live with somebody else to like keep all the habits. Anyway, that's a side tangent.
It was at that point in my life, I had never really had a best friend who would just come over to my house all the time and sleep over. So it was a learning experience for both of us in different ways. It was great though. It was a lot of fun. But so in the same way how Alva was able to be managed, I think second gen, yes, of course, just like we were talking about, we also need to be managed. So how do you, Alva, see second gen needing to be managed?
Obviously, I don't know, like, this is just my opinion, but at least from like technically living with Rachel when we were younger, like just allowing us to be like open with each other and like ask questions and express our emotions and thoughts without judging each other, right? Like this goes for parents, like, right, at first when we were together, we were just friends. Like we didn't really talk much about God, like, or the Bible much when we first were like friends, and like I was coming over all the time. We would still do Bible studies, obviously, but we were like talking about like our favorite movies and like doing girl stuff and whatever, yada yada. And so it was like we allowed ourselves to open up about like physical things first, so like our body and soul, right? Like the first connectors right to the physical world. And then we had that kind of solid like foundational friendship sort of. And so when things started getting deeper with the Bible studies and we started getting even closer, it like allowed our spirits to connect and and then we were both able to really help each other like kind of grow in that way. And then well, I don't know, I can't speak for you, but I feel like you've told me a few things, and you said that after I had come, it helped your faith even more, like to get stronger about Providence and be more proud in it, because you were kind of like learning with me. We were like learning the things together, because we were like 19, 20. Yeah, 19. And so and so I feel like that's how it was like managing for us. It was just no judgment. It was really just like we were like guiding each other, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, being really open, because I feel if we were judgmental on each other, then we would have caused, our friendship wouldn't have been, like solid, I guess, and then it allowed for Providence to be like the cherry on top of this, like, great, I guess.
I think that's valid, and that kind of segues into a topic that I wanted to talk about briefly, in regards to not having any judgment. And this is for other members, or for members listening, but also for future second gen that may listen to this. Growing up, you may feel like Providence is a place where you can be judged, and maybe, that's how it is in Christian churches too, and just churches in general. It may not always be a place or feel as if it's like very loving and very welcoming, because we're constantly being told that you have to make yourself better and make yourself more perfect. But I realized through many different aspects of my life, through becoming friends with Alva, through learning the Bible studies, and actually really listening to the word, that's not the case at all in Providence. This is actually something that I shared with the second gen during our reflection portion tonight, and so I'll share it with you guys too. This is from the lesson of Satan, who Pastor Dabiel, thank you for teaching Satan. She taught the lesson regarding Satan and sin's principle, and so during our reflection we were also asked to make key points and then applications for that. So I wanted to read that key point because it's in regards to not having any judgment. And so for myself, I realized that Satan is really evil, and the sin that I have or that I accumulate is not actually my own sin, but it's Satan's, which I then took and created as my own habits and into my own constitution. And so in Providence, it really is okay to make mistakes or to ask questions, to be unsure, to be like those little kids in the Sunday school where they're like, is that right? Type of thing. Those mistakes and doubts, those things don't make me a failure, but it's how I respond to those mistakes that determines my destiny, or determines if I'm a failure or not, really. It's whether or not I allow myself to repent, allow myself to stay humble, and take action according to God's will. So that was the key takeaway, I guess, that I wanted to share regarding second gen and judgment. I guess not feeling judged would be the better word. And the fact that, Providence is just really a place of love. And it's not just through the accumulation of second gen, but it's because of all of us working together and being harmonious, and especially based off of the men of missions condition that we're able to live in this ideal world, which I'm so grateful for. So I think, if there's nothing else for you to add, Alva, you good?
I mean, there's like a million things I could say, but
Really?
Of course, I could talk for hours.
We really could talk for hours, but we've had a long segment, which is great. So we're going to go ahead and finish here for this week's. I hope you all really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed, I guess, officially meeting my best friend.
Hello.
Alva. I hope you enjoyed our 2G Talk segment for today. And so, as always, please feel free to like our video, comment, say hi to Alva. She would greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions regarding to her, or that you wanted to reference to her, please feel free to leave it below. And as always, feel free to email Eddie and I at 2gtalks@gmail.com. So with that, we'll wrap up today's Tuesday segment. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day with the Holy Trinity, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this.